Tonight, calm family stories over rainy Minecraft, and every one of them asks the same question. Am I overreacting? You get to judge. First up, my sister charges our whole family $5 a plate for Thanksgiving. There's a reason, and nobody saw it coming. Get comfortable. Here we go. 3 years ago, my sister took over hosting Thanksgiving. And that first November, along with the invitation, every adult in the family got a message. It said dinner was at 3, bring nothing, and hosting Jews were $5 a plate. Jews. She used the word Jews. We thought it was a joke. It was not a joke. A week before dinner, the payment request went out, $5 each, labeled Thanksgiving with a due date. My uncle paid instantly because he thought it was funny. My mother paid while making a phone call about it at the same time. My cousin refused on principle, and his request just sat there, pending, for weeks. She never chased him. The request itself did the chasing. He says seeing it every time he opened the app was like being watched by a very polite ghost. He paid in December. And here's the thing, dinner was wonderful. It was wonderful every year. She never mentioned the money. No jar on the counter, no list, no thank you for your payment. Just turkey and pie, and this $5 mystery sitting quietly under the whole day. So last year, I finally asked her, while we did the dishes, what's the $5 for? And she dried her hands and showed me her phone. One account, separate from everything, labeled with Grandma's name. Every fee from every dinner, 3 years of them, untouched. It pays for Grandma's flight out each Thanksgiving. All of it. Grandma lives 4 states away on a fixed income, and she had told my sister, privately, that the ticket was getting to be too much and that she might start coming every other year instead. My sister did the math. 15 adults, $5 each, twice a year counting Christmas. A ticket. She could have just asked us for money and everyone would have paid and Grandma would have known. This way, Grandma just gets a ticket that the family found a deal on every single year and she never has to feel like a cost. The $5 fee isn't a fee, it's a disguise. So, was my cousin overreacting when he refused to pay? The family has ruled on this. Yes, he agrees, by the way. He pays double now. He calls it interest, and my sister never once told him why. He found out the same night I did, and he cried into a dish towel. That story ends there. $5 a plate, one hidden account, and a grandmother who thinks the airline just really likes her. Best dues any of us ever paid. Speaking of family group chats, our next story is about my brother, who made an announcements channel for the family and muted all of us. 2 years ago, my brother created a new family group chat. Nothing strange there. We have several, like every family, but this one was different. He named it Family Announcements, added all 14 of us, and then set it so only he could post. Everyone else muted, read only. A chat where the family cannot chat. The announcements themselves were rare and strange. Dad's birthday is in 3 weeks. Plan accordingly. Reminder, Aunt Jean is visiting the 12th through the 15th. The lake house is booked for July. No questions allowed, because questions weren't possible. My aunt tried to reply for a month straight before she realized her messages weren't going anywhere. She'd been reacting to announcements with thumbs up emojis that no one could see. I'll be honest, I found it insulting. We all did. A read-only family felt like being demoted from relatives to subscribers. At Easter, I finally said something. I asked him, in person, why he'd built a chat that treats his own family like an audience. Am I overreacting, I asked him, or is that weird? And he looked at me for a second, and then he showed me the other chats, the regular family chats. He scrolled slowly through one single day. 200 messages about a casserole, a 40-minute argument about a parking spot at a restaurant nobody had confirmed. 3 separate threads planning the same birthday, each missing different people, each with a different time for the party. That birthday, he reminded me, 2 relatives showed up an hour apart. Because of the threads. The announcements channel, he said, exists so that somewhere in all of this, there is one place where the facts live, one place with no casserole discourse, where the time of the party is the time of the party. He wasn't demoting us. He was building a lighthouse. Nobody's ever missed an event since, not one in 2 years. The regular chats still rage on, hundreds of messages a day, and honestly, we love them. But when you actually need to know when Thanksgiving is, 3 o'clock, bring nothing, $5, you check the lighthouse. Was I overreacting? A little, yes. The family's official verdict is that the announcements channel is the single best thing my brother has ever built, and we say this to his face now. He posted, "Thank you," in the channel. None of us could reply. He knew that. We know he knew. That story's over. 14 muted relatives and 1 lighthouse keeper. Sometimes the rudest looking thing at the table is the one holding dinner together. Speaking of borrowed things, our next story is about a drill, a dead battery, and my brother-in-law's garage. My brother-in-law Dave borrows tools. That's fine, tools are for borrowing. What drove me quietly insane for 2 years is how they came back. Every tool returned clean, on time, undamaged, and with a completely dead battery. Every single time. My drill would come home polished like a show car and drained to 0%. It sounds small. I know it sounds small. That's why I never said anything, and that's exactly how small things grow in families. You don't mention it, so it keeps happening. Then you can't mention it because it's been happening too long. Then one Saturday you're standing in your garage holding a dead drill you needed right now, whispering, "Am I overreacting?" to a wall of paint cans. So I did what our whole family does instead of talking. I built a system, a charging station mounted by my garage door with a label maker involved. One slot said home, one slot said traveling. The idea was that Dave would see it, feel the gentle institutional pressure, and start returning things charged. He saw it. He said, and I quote, "Oh, that's smart." And then he kept returning dead batteries directly into the charging station. He thought I'd built it for him. To make his returns easier, he started calling it the pit stop. I gave up. Genuinely. I decided this was who Dave is. Dead batteries are the tax, and the tax was affordable. And then last spring, my drill started slipping. The chuck, the part that grips the bit, had been loose for a year. I'd just learned to live with it. And one day it came back from Dave's, fixed, tight as new. He'd noticed it during his borrow, taken the whole thing apart, cleaned it, adjusted it, and said nothing. When I asked, he shrugged and said, it was rattling. Couldn't leave it like that. This man had been silently maintaining my tools for 2 years. The batteries came back dead because he USED'd the tools hard, sure, but every blade came back sharpened, every hinge oiled. I'd been running a charging station for a man who was running a repair shop for me. Neither of us ever said a word. Was I overreacting about the batteries? The family says yes, and the family is right. Dave and I have never discussed any of this. The batteries still come back dead. The tools still come back better. It's the best trade in the family. That story ends there. A dead battery is annoying. A Titan chuck is love. In this family, you learn to read the second thing. From the garage to the table, our next story is about my casserole and the aunt who fixes it every single year. Every holiday, I bring the green bean casserole. And every holiday, my Aunt Marie tastes one bite, says, "Oh, lovely," and then walks it back into the kitchen and re-seasons it in front of everyone. She doesn't hide it. There's a rhythm to it, a little pepper, something from her purse I've never identified, a stir, and back out it comes. "Just woke it up a little," she says, every year, for 9 years. Am I overreacting to be bothered by that? I asked my husband on the drive home once, and he said very carefully, "The casserole is better after." Which, fine. It is. That's not the point. The point is I'm 41 years old and my dish gets edited annually like a school essay. Last Christmas, I decided to settle it. I cornered Marie in the kitchen, mid-fix, wooden spoon in her hand, and asked her straight, "Why do you do this to end my casserole every year?" And she froze, the first time I have ever seen Marie freeze, and said quietly, "Oh honey, it's not your casserole. It's Grandma's casserole." The recipe I got from my mother, who got it from a card in a box, was Grandma's, but the card was wrong. Grandma, who died when I was 6, never wrote down the real amounts. She kept them, quote, "up here." You may remember this exact phrase from another man. In another family, there is one in every family. Before she passed, she taught the real version to exactly one person, Marie, in that kitchen, over one long weekend I was too young to remember. The card in the box is the public version. What Marie does every year, with the pepper and the mystery packet, is convert my faithful copy of the wrong recipe into the actual dish her mother made. 60 seconds of correction carrying a woman. None of the grandkids really knew back onto the table. She thought I knew. She thought everybody knew. Marie is 72. That night, she sat me down at the kitchen table with an index card and a pen. And now there are 2 of us who know the real amounts. I still bring the casserole every year. Marie still tastes it. Last year she took her bite, put the spoon down and just nodded. First time in a decade, the dish didn't go back to the kitchen. Was I overreacting? Completely. For 9 years I thought I was being edited. I was being finished. That story's over. Check your family's recipe cards, folks. Some of them are public versions. And if somebody keeps fixing your dish the same way every year, maybe ask what they're actually adding. Speaking of things that happen every year on schedule, our next story is about a text message my mother sends at 6,012 in the morning. Every birthday of my life, my mother texts me at exactly 6,012 a.m., not around 6, not when she wakes up. At 6,002 to the minute every year, because that is the minute I was born, the text is always the same, "Happy birthday, you were worth every second." Glove, Mum. For years, I found this mostly sweet and slightly annoying, in the way that most family traditions are both at once. I'm not a morning person. My birthday would begin every single year with my phone buzzing on the nightstand in the dark, and in my 30s I finally said something. I told her, gently I thought, that she could just text at a normal hour, that the sentiment mattered, not the minute. She said, "Of course, honey." She sounded fine. Am I overreacting to feel like I'd just broken something? I asked my wife that night. She winced, which is a yes. The next birthday, my phone stayed dark at 6012. The text came at 9003 and it was lovely and it said the same words. And I lay there at 9031 feeling like a man who had successfully complained the magic out of his own birthday. I missed it the way you miss a train you specifically asked not to catch. The 9003 text was correct. The 6012 text was too. Because, and I understood this the year it went quiet, that minute is hers. It's the one moment of my birthday that belongs to her more than to me. At 6001-2 in the morning, decades ago, she was doing the hardest work of her life, and every year since, in the dark, she'd been the first one to the door of my new year. I hadn't silenced an alarm. I'd told the first person waiting to see me that she was early. I called her that afternoon and asked for the 6001-2 text back. She said, "Oh, thank goodness," in one breath, like she'd been holding it since September. Every year since, the phone buzzes in the dark, and I am awake for it. I don't tell her that part, although I suppose I just told all of you. Was I overreacting when I asked her to stop? Yes. The verdict is unanimous, and I cast the deciding vote myself. Some alarms you don't silence. You learn to wake up first. That story ends there. 6001 in the morning, every year, the same 11 words. Worth every second. She means the labor, I mean the years. The text means both. Speaking of parents and boundaries, our next story is about the spare key to my apartment and what my parents actually do with it. When I moved into my own place, my parents asked for a spare key. For emergencies, they said. And then, every few months, I'd come home from a weekend away and something would be adjusted. Nothing missing, nothing moved exactly. But the plants looked suspiciously happy. Once there was soup in the freezer that I did not make. The soup was labeled. The label was in my mother's handwriting. I asked around, and my friends were horrified. They come into your home? When you're not there? You have to shut that down, that's a boundary, you're an adult. And look, they weren't wrong on paper. On paper, unannounced parental soup is a violation, so the next family dinner, I raised it, casually. "Hey, do you guys come by when I travel?" And my parents looked at each other like two kids caught splitting a stolen cookie, and my dad said, "Well, someone has to check the radiators." Check the radiators. My friends, there is no such thing as checking radiators. What there is, I learned over the following months of gentle interrogation, is this. My mother waters the plants because I once lost a fern and mentioned being sad about it. My father checks that the windows are locked, the taps aren't dripping, and, this is real, that the fridge isn't getting loud because his own father lost a fridge of groceries once in 1979, and apparently the wound is generational. The soup exists so that when I come home tired from a trip, I don't order takeout at 11 at night, which my mother considers a small tragedy. They come in for 20 minutes, they fuss, they leave. They have done this, it turns out, since I moved out. Every apartment, 12 years. Am I overreacting if I take the key back? That was the question I actually typed out once, late at night, and never sent anywhere. Because by then I already knew my verdict. The key stays. I did set one rule. Text me when you've been by. And now I get the world's best surveillance reports. Plants fine, fridge quiet, soup is minestrone. Love, Dad. He signs his texts too. It runs in the family, and you'll hear about Grandma later. That story's over. On paper, it's a boundary issue. In the freezer, it's minestrone. I've decided to live by the freezer. Speaking of in-laws, our next story is about the photo my mother-in-law keeps on her mantle and why it's that one. My mother-in-law's mantle is a shrine of good photography. Her children's graduations, professionally shot. Her own wedding, restored and framed in silver. Everyone looks wonderful. And then, dead center, at eye level, in the nicest frame on the shelf, the single worst photograph ever taken of me. It's from my wedding reception. My eyes are half closed. My mouth is open in what can only be described as mid-chew. I'm gesturing with a fork. Behind me, perfectly in focus, my wife looks like a magazine cover, which somehow makes my half of the frame worse. When I tell you every visitor to that house sees it, the plumber has seen it, the plumber commented. For 6 years, I believed this was a quiet joke at my expense, the son-in-law tax. And fine, every family assigns you a role, and apparently mine was fork guy. I never said anything because what do you even say? Am I overreacting about a photo? You cannot ask that question out loud about a photo without instantly losing. Then, 2 Christmases ago, my wife's grandmother, visiting from out of state, meeting me for only the 3rd time, stopped in front of the mantle, tapped that frame, and said to my mother-in-law, "That's the one with Frank in it." And the room went still, in the way rooms do when a name that isn't usually said gets said. Frank was my wife's father. He passed 2 years before I met her. And in the background of my terrible photo, behind mid-chew fork guy, past my magazine cover wife, there he is at the edge of the frame at our reception. Table, no. That's impossible, I thought. He was gone by then. And then I looked closer at what everyone who knew him had always seen instantly, my wife's brother, in Frank's old grey suit, wearing Frank's watch, laughing, with his head thrown all the way back, which, I am told, was Frank's laugh, exact, inherited whole. The photo everyone in that family sees is not a photo of me chewing. It is the only photo from the wedding where Frank's laugh is visible on his son's face, in his suit, at his daughter's wedding. He made it into the picture the only way he could. Nobody ever told me because nobody thought they had to. I asked my mother-in-law about it quietly that night, and she said, "Oh, the fork's just a bonus, dear." Was I overreacting all those years? I was, but so gently, and so was everyone in the other direction. The photo stays sentimental. I've made my peace with the fork. Frank and I share a frame, and honestly, of the two of us, he's using it better. That story ends there. Look at the backgrounds of your family's photos, folks. That's where some people live now. Speaking of things with labels, our next story is about my sister's fridge and the masking tape that runs our kitchen. My sister and I shared an apartment for 3 years, and for 3 years, every single item in our fridge wore a label. Masking tape, black marker, her handwriting. Not just leftovers, everything. Open Tuesday. For Friday, don't. A container of rice labelled simply yes. I lived inside a card catalogue that was slowly digesting. My friends found the labels hilarious and slightly alarming. Control issues, they said. Passive aggression with a tape dispenser. And when I tell people the story, that's where they expect it to go, the roommate horror angle. Am I overreacting, I'd ask people, or is it strange to need permission from tape to eat rice? Here's what I didn't mention to those friends, because I genuinely didn't connect it for Y years. I have a tree nut allergy. The kind with an ambulance story behind it. And I am also, my sister's words, said with love, a man who eats standing up in the dark without reading anything. Both things are true. That's the whole story, really. The labels that said yes, those were mine. Everything safe said yes or had my name. Everything risky said, for Friday don't, or M's, ask first. And Friday never came because Friday wasn't a day, it was a code. My sister had built a filing system for keeping her brother alive without ever once making it feel like a medical protocol, because she knew she KNEW that. If she'd said, I'm labeling everything because of your allergy, I would have waved her off and eaten dark kitchen rice anyway. The tape wasn't managing the fridge. It was managing me invisibly for 3 years, and it worked. Not one incident in an apartment that regularly contained her pesto, her baklava, her almond, everything. I figured it out after I moved in with my now wife, opened our unlabeled fridge one night and realized I had no idea what was safe. I stood there in the dark, missing tape. My wife labels things now. My sister trained her. They deny this. The labels are in both their handwritings. Was I ever overreacting about the labels? I never even got to. Strangers overreacted on my behalf, and we were all wrong together. The tape was love with adhesive backing. That story's over. If someone in your family labels things, organizes things, systems things, check what the system is protecting before you laugh at it. It might be you. Speaking of small rules, our next story is about a gate latch and the uncle who checks it behind every single person. My Uncle Ron has one law. The back gate gets latched. Not closed, latched, with the little bar dropped, which takes 1 extra second that no human being on earth remembers to spend, so Ron spends it for us. Every gathering at his house, he drifts along behind the guests like a tide, relatching the gate. And if you're the one who left it unlatched, you get the lecture. It's not a long lecture, it's worse, it's a short one. Latch drops, or the gate's just a suggestion, every time, for as long as anyone can remember. We teased him about it forever, the latch inspector, sheriff of the backyard. My cousin used to leave it unlatched on purpose, just to watch Ron materialize from a conversation 40 feet away. Am I overreacting, Ron? It's a gate. And Ron would drop the bar, tap it twice, and walk away without defending himself. He never once defended himself. That should have told us something. It told us something 2 summers ago at the reunion, when there were maybe 30 people in that backyard and someone's toddler, my second cousin's girl. 18 months old, fast as gossip, made a break for the open side yard, straight for the pool gate, which was latched, because Ron latches gates. She rattled it, the way toddlers rattle things, and it held, and an adult scooped her up 4 seconds later, and the party went on. Most people there never even saw it happen. I saw Ron see it. He didn't say anything. He tapped the latch twice on his way past, same as always. And later that evening, my aunt told me quietly, the thing the older generation all knew, and somehow none of us did. When Ron was a boy, his family lost a neighbour's child to an unlatched gate in a canal, and Ron, 9 years old, had been the last one through that gate. 60 years ago. Latch drops, or the gate's just a suggestion. Nobody teases him anymore. The strange thing is, we didn't decide to stop. It just spread through the family without a meeting, the way the important things do. Now I latch gates, everywhere. My cousin, the one who used to bait him, installed a self-latching hinge at his own house and sent Ron a photo of it. Ron replied with a thumbs up. Longest message anyone's ever gotten out of him on the subject. Was anyone overreacting? Yes, all of us, for 30 years, in the wrong direction. That story ends there. Some family rules are quirks. Some are 60-year-old promises wearing a quirk's clothing. Latch the gate. Speaking of thrones, our next story is about the recliner in my father-in-law's living room and the day I sat in it. Every family has a sacred chair. My wife's family has the recliner, brown leather, positioned at a strange angle in the corner, angled away from the natural center of the room. Nobody sits in it but her dad. This was explained to me exactly 0 times before the day, early in the marriage, when I walked into an empty living room and sat down in it. The reaction was extraordinary. My wife's brother came in, stopped, and left. Came back with my wife. She made a sound I'd previously only heard her make at horror movies. From the kitchen, my mother-in-law called out, "Is someone in the care?" With no possible way of knowing, I stood up so fast I made the footrest slam, which brought the whole household. Am I overreacting? I asked my wife on the drive home. Or is your family unhinged about furniture? She said the chair was just Dad's spot, and everyone respects it, and I should too, and I did. But the angle bothered me for years. The chair points at nothing. It faces away from the TV, half toward a bookshelf. Sacred, fine, but badly aimed and sacred. The answer arrived, the way answers do in that family. Sideways, years later, from the mother-in-law, while she watered plants. Her husband's left eye. Surgery in the 90s, mostly fine now, but glare hits it hard, and the living room's big window throws afternoon light straight across the TV wall. The chair's strange angle is the one spot in the room where the glare misses him, and he can still see the screen through the corner of his good field of view. He tried every position in that room decades ago and found the one that works, and rather than ever once mention his eye, which he considers nobody's business, including his own, he simply sat there so consistently that the family built a religion around the chair to avoid asking questions. The angle isn't wrong. The angle is medical. The religion isn't about respect. It's a whole family agreeing silently for decades to protect one proud man from ever having to explain himself. I know all this now. He doesn't know I know. When we visit, I sit anywhere else, same as everyone, not because the chair is sacred, but because now I'm in on it. Was I overreacting about the weird angle? I was underreacting. Everything in that room is exactly where it needs to be. That story's over. Every family has one badly aimed chair. Before you fix it, find out what it's aimed around. From the living room to the driveway, our next story is a war. The politest one my family has ever fought. When I visit my parents, there are 2 places to park. The good spot, flat, wide, right by the door, and the street, which is fine. It's fine. And every visit, for years, my father has insisted I take the good spot. And every visit, I refuse, because he's in his 70s and I'm not taking my elderly father's parking spot. And he refuses my refusal, because no child of his is parking way out there. It's 40 feet, and we stand in the driveway performing this small opera while my mother watches from the window. It escalated the way our family escalates, through logistics. He started moving his car to the street before I arrived, so the good spot would sit empty and I'd have no argument. so I started arriving early to beat him to the street. He responded by parking at the NEIJH Boars. With permission, they find him delightful, leaving both our spots open, which is checkmate by generosity. One Christmas, we both parked on the street, and the good spots spend the holiday empty, like a chair for a prophet. My mother has a photo of it. She shows people. Am I overreacting by refusing the spot? I asked my mother once in the kitchen, watching Dad check on my street-parked car through the window for the third time. And she laughed and told me why the spot matters. In winter, he shovels it first, before his own path, before the walk. In summer, he checks it for the neighbours' kids' chalk and bikes. When rain's coming, he's been known to put the patio umbrella near it, which does nothing and means everything. The good spot is where his family's cars go, she said. Keeping it ready is how he waits for you. When you take the street, honey, you're not saving him the spot. You're leaving his table set with nobody at it. I take the spot now, every visit. He waves me into it with two hands like ground crew, beaming, and then he checks on my car all weekend anyway, because the checking was never about the parking. The war is over. Everybody won. Was I overreacting? Yes, with love, in the wrong direction, for years, exactly like him. It's hereditary. That story ends there. If somebody old keeps a spot ready for you, a chair, a driveway, a place at a table, take the spot. The spot is the sentence they can't say. Speaking of things people can't say, our next story is about 4 words at the end of every text my grandmother sends. My grandmother signs her text messages. Every single one, no matter how short, ends the same way. Love, Grandma. A text that says yes arrives as yes. Love, Grandma. Once, memorably, she texted my cousin a single thumbs up emoji, a skill that took 3 lessons, followed immediately by a second text, love, Grandma. My brother finds this endlessly funny. He's tried explaining that texts aren't letters, that we know it's her, that her name is literally at the top of the screen. She listens to all of this with great patience and continues signing. At some point it became a family debate, sweet or silly. And somebody eventually asked the real question out loud. Are we overreacting by trying to fix it? What's it costing anyone? The answer to what it's about came from my mother, who grew up watching her mother write actual letters. Grandma came up in a time and a family where mail was rare and cost something. Paper, a stamp, a walk to the post. You didn't send an unsigned scrap. You signed because a message from you was a small formal object, a made thing. Somewhere in her, my mother says, every message still costs a stamp. So every message is still worth signing. It's not that she doesn't understand texting. It's that she refuses to send anything that isn't finished. And here's what settled the debate for good. 2 years ago, my brother, the Tease, was going through a brutal stretch. Job gone, engagement gone, the works. And he told us later that some nights the only message he answered was hers, because, his words, everyone else sent texts. Grandma sent letters. You can hold a letter, saying 3 words at the end, every time, steady as a heartbeat on a screen full of noise. He never explained why he suddenly started signing his text to her. Love, Danny, she never asked. She just told my mother that Danny had always had lovely manners, which he has never had, and everyone let it stand. Was anyone overreacting? Only the ones who tried to fix it. Verdict, unanimous. All messages should cost a stamp, and most of ours now do. Half this family signs text to grandma like Victorian correspondence, and she deserves it. That story's over. Yes, love grandma, some formats are not outdated, some formats are low-bearing. Speaking of phones, our next story is about my father's ringtones and the strange rule that nobody may change them. My dad assigns custom ringtones to everyone in the family, and he will not explain his choices. My mother is an old rotary phone sound. My sister is a piece of classical music none of us could name. My uncle is, for reasons never disclosed, a duck, and you cannot ask. People have asked. He deflects with the skill of a man who has prepared his whole life for the question. It suited you, he says, and returns to his crossword. Mine, for years, was a snippet of what I assumed was just noise. A few seconds of muffled sound, some rustling, a voice too distorted to place. Honestly, of all the family ringtones, mine seemed like the lazy one. My sister got Beethoven or whoever. My uncle got a whole duck, and I got static. Am I overreacting? I asked my wife. Or did Dad phone mine in? She suggested wisely that I ask him. I chose, less wisely, to stew about it for 2 more years instead. We've established by now what this family does instead of asking questions. Then last fall, my phone rang on the kitchen counter while my dad was visiting and my 4-year-old daughter, hearing my ringtone for the 1000th time, suddenly said, "That's ME." And we both looked at her, and she was right. The static is a voicemail. 11 seconds of one from the day she was born. Me calling my father from the hospital hallway. 2 wrecked to form sentences, rustling, a wet laugh, and one distorted line that, once you know, you cannot. On here, Dad, she's here. He'd saved the voicemail, clicked it, and quietly made it the sound his phone makes when I call. Then, because his system has rules I will never fully map, he also made it MY ringtone for each IS calls, so that each of us, whenever the other calls, hears the best 11 seconds of my life. The man had been carrying that around in his pocket for 4 years, letting me believe it was static. I asked him about the duck once more after that, emboldened. It suited him, said my father, and did the crossword. Was I overreacting about getting the lazy ringtone? I retract everything. I have the best one. Don't tell my uncle. Although knowing my father, the duck also means something, and we are all simply not ready. That story ends there. If someone strange and quiet has assigned you a sound, an angle, a spot, a label, assume it's a love letter in a format you haven't decoded yet. In this family, it usually is. Speaking of phones at night, our next story is the one I'm least proud of, about the texts I muted. My mum has texted you home after every single drive I've taken since I was 16. Everyone, 20 years. Short drives, long drives, drives she only knew about because she knows everything, and 2 years ago I muted her. Not dramatically, I just muted the thread. I was 36, tired of my phone buzzing at 11 p.m. Every time I drove home from anywhere, tired of feeling tracked, I still answered. Eventually, next morning sometimes, the little "you home" would sit there unanswered overnight, and I told myself that was a boundary, and boundaries are healthy, and if anyone was overreacting it was her, 20 years, deep in a habit I'd never once asked for. Then in March, I drove home from my cousin's place through a storm, the kind where the wipers can't keep up and you hold the wheel like it owes you money. I got in late, dropped my keys, went to bed, phone on silent, thread on mute. And in the morning I picked up my phone and saw it. 10,008, you home? 11,002, storm looks bad on the map. 11,041, just checking in. 12,005, missed call. 12,007 from my father, a man who texts annually, call your mother. She'd been up until 1. I did the math on that and then I did some math on myself. 20 years of you home. That's thousands of nights she stayed at her post until the answer came. And the 01 night the answer didn't come, she was 71 years old, awake in the dark, watching a weather map track a storm her son was inside of. The mute button hadn't given me a boundary. It had just moved all the worry to her side of the wall. I didn't announce anything. I just started answering again, fast, every time, 2 seconds, home safe. And a few months ago, I noticed I'd started sending her the same text when I knew she was driving.
You home?
She always answers fast. She'd learned that from herself. Was I overreacting when I muted her? The jury took one look at the 1141 just checking in and convicted. Some threads you don't mute. You'll want them at full volume for as long as they keep coming, and they don't come forever. That story's over. Text your mother back, folks. It costs 2 seconds. It buys somebody a whole night's sleep. Speaking of drives, our next story is about a thermos of coffee I spent 10 years refusing. Anytime I visit my dad and the drive home is longer than half an hour, he hands me a thermos at the door, full hot black coffee, every visit, every season. July, hot coffee, 9 in the morning after I slept there, hot coffee. I'd say I'm fine, Dad. He'd hand it over anyway, with the cap already tightened, like a relay baton I never agreed to run with. For years I found it mildly ridiculous. I'd drive home with a full thermos sweating in the cup holder, pour it out in my kitchen, wash it, and return it next visit where it would be handed back. Full at the door, a closed loop of unwanted coffee. My wife started calling it the toll. You want to leave, you take the coffee. Am I overreacting to find it a little much? I asked her once. She said, it takes 4 seconds, just take the toll, wise woman. I kept taking it, kept pouring it out. Then my grandfather's brother died, great uncle Walt's side of the family, the trucking side. And at the funeral lunch, the old men started telling road stories. And one of them, a retired long hauler, raised his cup and said, to Big Ed, my great-grandfather, who never let a man drive out of his yard without coffee. And the whole table nodded like a church. Turns out, Big Ed ran a yard where truckers rested back in the day. Turns out men left that yard at all hours, tired, in weather. And turns out Big Ed had one iron rule, learned the hard way, in a story nobody tells with details. Nobody drives tired out of my yard. The coffee wasn't a beverage, it was a checkpoint. You took it, and taking it meant a man had looked you in the eye at the door and judged you awake enough to go. My dad grew up watching his grandfather hand thermoses to strangers. He's not offering me coffee, he's running the yard. I drink it now, the whole way home. It's always exactly how I like it, which I never told him, which means he asked my wife at some point, which means the thermos has been personalized for years, while I was pouring it down the sink. I don't think about that part too much. Was I overreacting? No, I was underreacting, 10 years running. The toll was a checkpoint. The checkpoint was his grandfather's. Take the coffee, folks. That story ends there. Somewhere tonight, a Thermos is riding home full in someone's cup holder, doing its quiet job. Drink the coffee. Let the old yard rule hold. Speaking of leaving, our next story is about my grandmother who says goodbye to everyone twice. Every visit to my grandmother's ends the same way. You say your goodbyes inside. Hugs, the doorway lingering, all of it. A proper goodbye by any standard. And then, as you back out of the driveway, there she is, outside, at your car window, for the second goodbye. The second goodbye is short. She taps the glass, you roll it down, and she says some small thing. Watch the merge, or text when you're home, or once unforgettably your tires look. Thoughtful. Then she pats the door twice, like a horse she's fond of, and you're released. It happens in rain. It happens in January. Guests who don't know the system will be halfway down the driveway before they see her in the mirror, wading out into the weather, and panic break thinking. They forgot something. You did not forget anything. You just weren't finished being loved yet. For a while, the younger cousins campaigned to stop her. She's 91. It's icy out there, Grandma. We just said goodbye. Am I overreacting? My cousin asked the family chat. Or should someone talk to her about the driveway thing? A fair question, honestly. It was February. She'd gone out in a robe. My mother answered the chat with one message, and the campaign ended forever. Her father, my great-grandfather, left for work one morning when my grandmother was a girl, and there'd been some small spat at breakfast, nothing the kind. Every kitchen has, and the goodbye was short. A nod, a door. He was a good man, and it was a normal morning, and he didn't come home from it. Heart at work before lunch. And my grandmother, 12 years old that morning, has spent every day since making sure that no one she loves ever drives away on a goodbye she'd be unwilling to keep. The first goodbye is for the visit. The second one is for just in case. She would stand in any weather on earth for that. Nobody talks to her about the driveway thing. The family talks to the wather about it. Somebody always has her coast staged by the door now, and in winter my uncle salts a path to where the cars stop. A little runway maintained all season for the second goodbyes. Was my cousin overreacting? He withdrew the question himself. He's usually the last to leave now. 2 goodbyes take an extra 90 seconds. She's been paying that toll for 80 years. We can stand in some rain. That story's over. If somebody in your family says goodbye twice, at the door, at the car, on the phone once more after the phone call, let them. Both goodbyes are real. One's just older than the other. And our last story tonight is a small one, about why my mother has never once returned an empty dish. Borrow a dish from anyone. Bring my mother a casserole in it. Lend her a platter at a potluck. And when that dish comes back to you, there will be something in it. Always banana bread, a dozen cookies, soup if she judges your household to be in a soup place. The dish is never empty. My whole childhood I thought this was simply what dishes were. Objects that circulate through the world carrying baked goods in both directions. My husband noticed it first, early on, the way outsiders notice a family's air. Your mom still has my chili pot. It'll be back, I said. It'll be full, I added, and he laughed. And then it came back full of lemon bars, and he stopped laughing and started lending her dishes strategically, which she absolutely knows and rewards. Once, when I was helping her in the kitchen, I asked her where the rule came from, expecting etiquette, some mid-century manners thing. Am I overreacting to think it's deeper than that? I'd watched her that same week bake at 10 p.m. because a neighbour's Tupperware was due back and the house was out of butter. That is not etiquette behaviour, that is doctrine. She wiped her hands and told me about her own mother, who came through years, real years, thin years, when what circulated between the houses on her street was survival. A pot went next door with potatoes in it because next door needed potatoes and pride needed the pot to just be returning. It came back with eggs for the same reason. Nobody on that street was ever handed charity. They were handed their own dishes back. An empty dish says the exchange is over, my mother said. A full one says, your turn, whenever you're ready. It keeps the door open. Her mother never once returned an empty dish all her life. So my mother never has. So now I never do. That's the whole story. There's no twist in this one. Just 3 generations of women keeping a door open with banana bread and a rule that sounds like manners and is actually a treaty. Nobody in this family's orbit will ever be given help, only ever handed their own dish back, a little heavier than they lent it. Was I overreacting to think it was deeper? For once in this entire video, no. It was exactly as deep as it looked. Sometimes it is. That story ends there, and honestly, that's the one to fall asleep on. That's all 17. The gate is latched, the good spot is shoveled, the casserole is finally correct, and somewhere tonight a dish is going home full. The thermos is in the cup holder. The second goodbye has been said in whatever weather there was. If you're still awake, you got every verdict, and I hope you judged us kindly. We were mostly overreacting, mostly in the wrong direction, mostly out of love. That's the pattern, if tonight had one. The small annoying thing is almost never the real thing. The real thing is usually underneath, quiet, and better than you feared. It's worth remembering about your own family, whichever side of the overreacting you're on this week. And if you're already asleep, then none of this reached you, which is fine. That's the arrangement. The house has got the place, and nothing needs you right now. Whatever's on your list for tomorrow will keep until tomorrow. The stories will keep too. Families always do. Sleep well, take care of yourself, and I'll see you at the next one. You home? Good. Text somebody back anyway. Someone is still up, waiting to hear it. Good night.